Producer Spotlight with Mr. Instro.
You can be a beat maker and not be a music producer. But when you're a music producer, you don't have to be a beat maker.
Only on the element.
Only on the element. Yo. Even me, I know that note was hectically horrible. It's just gone 23 minutes before we hit 7 o'clock. No, I didn't want Mr. Instro to tell me. Because when it comes from Mr. Instro, it hurts.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to say anything.
But also, you can feel, man. Yeah, no, I tripped there. Yeah, I felt it because my throat was like...
It's because of the things you're doing off air. The things you're saying.
If you just walked in, ignore that other voice that you heard just now, that baritone, for the next few minutes. It is The Element, and it's all for the love of hip-hop. This is the Producer Spotlight. That's why you are hearing Mr. Instro. He's definitely here every single Wednesday, 6:30 to 7:30. We bring you the Producer Spotlight. And I'm not the superstar, but you see, I try to be. That's why I was trying to hit them notes. But then today, my voice betrayed me. So here we are. However... Hello, Mr. Instro.
What's up, Aziz?
How are you?
Hey, man, I'm good. I'm very excited.
So why are you trying to bring our off-air things onto the air?
I'm not, actually. It's your own fault. You went off key. You went off key. Well, I know you to be the person to always get it. So today...
No, man, somewhere else. So basically what was happening off air is that I had this like brainwave and I was like, oh my God, we're totally going to do it. And Just Chills was like, yeah, we're going to do it. And it's just no. So I was caught up in the some tola.
This is God telling you it's a bad idea.
No, this is God saying, my girl, save your voice for this thing. Yes. Okay. So that's exactly what was happening. I guess that could
mean that too.
Exactly. I'm God's favorite child, I'm telling you. Okay. All right, so we're going to take a quick money break and then we're going to come back and get straight into it. If you don't know how it works, Mr. Instro selects a really incredible producer. We take a look at their works, key things in their career, things that they've said as well that stand out to us, and we walk away with a whole hell of a lot more knowledge. So we go through this journey looking at one particular producer each week, and then the next week it's somebody else. So stay with us. #Producer Spotlight. Mr. Instro is on at Mr_Instro. We are at The Element SA. You already know us. Your girl Azizzar, the Pristine Queen, at Queen Azizzar, and those are the social media plugs for the next hour. We go until 7:30, and it's always such a dope time. And of course, it's always all for the love of hip-hop. Only on The Element. 15 minutes before we hit 7 o'clock, we are officially in the Producer Spotlight hour. Mr. Instro is here. Yep. And we're officially going to get into it because we're going to take a money break in just a few, but we want to let you know who our producer for tonight is. Give us the name, Mr. Instro, and I'll do
the this. Name is my spirit animal.
Bonke.
No, this one is the one. This
identity crisis.
I might, hey?
Bonk.
I might. For real. Is it all of them?
I mean, well, if it's not spirit animals, it's one of my favorites. Or it's, this guy, like, I really identify with this guy. But I think it's just your love of production.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say that maybe I'm just a real fan of these guys and how they express themselves through their art, So tonight, we have 88 Keys on the Spotlight. And man, like this is the guy that has done a considerable amount of work in the late 90s. I mean, he's still operating today. One of the best, man, to come out of New York.
All right, so I have a bio just to bring us up to speed because we're not all Mr. Instro, okay? And I want us all to be on the same page. So this coming from allmusic.com, written by David Jeffries, because we have to give credit where it is due. So producer and rapper 88 Keys worked his way up from interning at a recording studio to making beats for Grammy-winning material. Now, in addition to production work for a lot of people, from John Legend to Pusha T, 88 Keys struck out with multiple tracks of his own and a 2008 solo concept album of pop rap hybrids titled The Death of Adam. Now, born Charles Misodi Njapa in New York City in 1976 in March. 5th of March.
Wow, that's close.
10 days before, someone else is very important. I just wanted to say, really incredible people were born in March, just in case you haven't gotten it. If you haven't gotten it, go watch the previous producer spotlights. You'll understand. Right, so born on the 5th of March in 1976, 88 Keys became interested in hip-hop in his teens, and it says he was fixated on Prince Paul's production of De La Soul's legendary 3 Feet High and Rising. So he became an intern and then an engineer at West Hempstead's famous recording studio, the Music Palace, and began networking and working with rappers like Large Professor, Nas, Q-Tip, and P.D. Rock. His big break came in 1998 when one of his productions landed on the groundbreaking Mos Def and Talib Kweli album Black Star. That's where I'm gonna cut it. I mean, there's a lot more that can be said about him, but that's just to bring those of us who are not quite Mr. Instro level up to speed so that we don't get left behind, because we're about to take a nice young journey. Why 88 Keys tonight, Mr. Instro, before we go on this money break?
Okay, 88 Keys because I was reminded very fondly that while I was listening to the new Donda album,
yes,
right, so he's got a couple of credits on that album. He produced Control is one of the songs. I know we're going to play that later. So I was reminded, because he comes from like back in the day when we fell in love with hip-hop, Rocker's age, and he was producing for Mos Def, Talib Kweli, he mentioned the Large Professor, and
Nas,
Q-Tip era. So that's the time that we were actually just discovering this thing we call hip-hop, and
Truth.
I just had to like bring him through. And he also reminds me of myself. I know a lot of producers remind me of me, okay, but this guy reminds me of myself in the sense that he makes music that lasts. He makes classic joints.
If you do say so yourself.
No, for real. Like you have like a Timbaland.
Yes.
You have a Dr. Dre, someone who makes certified hits, right? And a lot of producers, I guess, want to be that kind of producer.
True.
But sometimes there are producers like me who make music, and we usually take the longest to make these kind of records. But when that record comes out, you best believe like 10, 15 years later, they will still be listening to those joints. So that's the kind of producer 88 Keys is. And that's the kind of producer that a lot of people don't really see in the limelight,
right?
But
okay.
like,
I want to hold you off there for just a second. I'm going to take this money break and then come back. And I wish I could argue with Mr. Instro and say, no, you ain't that kind of producer, but he really, really is.
Thank you.
And we are back with 9 minutes to go before we hit 7 o'clock, taking a look at 88 Keys tonight on the Producer Spotlight. If you just plugged in, this is The Element, and it's all for the love of hip-hop. And rolling with me tonight, as is the case every Wednesday, is Mr. Instro. He's putting us on game about why we should know 88 Keys a little bit better. Yeah, so where we going? Where we starting?
So we're going to start, you mentioned earlier that he was born in 1976. That's quite a while ago. He's in his early 40s right now, and he grew up in a time. It's important for me to mention that he had Cameroonian. That's how you say it, right?
Yes.
Cameroonian parents.
Roots, yes.
Right, and during those times, growing up, they would have like problems in terms of identifying identity. Okay. You know what I mean? Growing up, being in school, you know how cruel kids can get, yes. in school. Like they can properly like, make you not want to be who you are.
True. And
he spent a lot of time in school not being proud of his roots, and I have to mention that because when the raw cast, when the your Q-tips and your Q-tips and your Tribe Called Quest, your Q-tips and your Tribe Called Quest people came through,
Whoever
right?
is texting Mr. Instro.
No, yeah, like I lost my train of thought. I am so sorry. Yeah, so when that sound came out, it made them really kind of wake up and imagine themselves and be proud of being African. You know, because when you're young, you're getting into situations where people are thinking your pet is a monkey.
Yeah.
You I don't know, like you live in huts and all of that stuff. So
and you walk forever and ever just to be able to flush the toilet.
Exactly.
Those types of things.
Those kind of things, the stereotypes, especially in America. Like in America, like they have no idea at that time, there's no real consciousness about being African. And when Black Star came out, it was sort of like that album that kind of took you back to Africa, and
it made people sit up and be like, oh,
exactly,
okay,
exactly, like and that was one of the things that really kind of catapulted him and his consciousness about where he was from. And for me, that is very important because a lot of us grow up in a culture where we are trying to not only emulate, but we're trying to be part of what culture is right now. We spend a lot of time trying to fit into what's hot, right? Like for me, I've got a very unique surname, right? And for a long time, like an early part of my upbringing as well, like I used to hate it because it would always make me stick out, at school.
I get that 100%.
And you would be called all kinds of names. But when Black Star came out, that was 98, and I was still in primary school. So I must have heard the album maybe a year and a half later, which was the transition between high school. Yeah. So it was the perfect time for me to come into my own and say, okay, cool, this is my surname. These are my roots, and I have to be proud of who I am and whose I am,
Yeah.
And it really was a culture defining time, especially like the introduction of Reflection Eternal, Lyricist Lounge, all of which 88 Keys was part of.
Nice.
At some point, he was actually a producer for Rockers, and he would do a lot of work around the artist that was signed on there, which is incredible, and the kind of production that was coming out of there. He was also like very instrumental in influencing some of the other producers that were there. So I saw a video of Talib Kweli just mentioning the fact that there are so many other situations where 88 Keys was just there.
Right.
He wasn't even producing nothing. He wasn't even working, but he would be in the mix of things. And that's how powerful being a producer can be. Just your presence sometimes can make somebody think differently or think better or in a heightened sense in terms of their artistry, than they normally would. So 88 Keys is that kind of dude, very influential. But going back to his coming up early days, he actually was working for a record shop. Well, it's not a record shop, but like a record collector.
Okay.
This guy was like major. His name is John Carrero, right? He was like very well known for having all sorts of records, right? So he went by his spot, and he was 14, 15 at the time, and he started cleaning his records for him. Right? Which is beautiful. You learn a lot. You get to branch out in the sense of your ear just becomes impeccable. True. Right? Because you have so much access to the music, right? And then at some point the shop got a phone call.
Yeah.
And the phone call, he was like, yo, man, the name sounded very familiar. And before he knew it, Q-Tip was at, he was at their store, doing their thing.
Just imagine answering the phone, Massive Metro, hello. And it's Q-Tip.
And then it's Q-Tip on the phone, So, which brings me to how he actually got his name, his AKA as 88 Keys. So one of the times that he that Q-Tip came through, he came with Large Professor, and I think it was Rakim, but I remember there was a third person that was mentioned there, and being the young producer that he is, played some beats
because he's hungry, because
he's that guy, and I love the fact that he was confident enough, because at that time those people were superstars. They were quite big, so I know that it would have been like a bit of an issue for me to to play some beats, but he did, which is dope. And Large Professor started freestyling over those beats.
Yeah.
And as he was freestyling, obviously 88 Keys had like a keyboard on deck, as he was playing the beats. So as Large Professor was freestyling, he mentioned the fact that I'm chilling with my dude 88 Keys, and he thought to himself like, yo, you know what? Yeah, in my professional days, I'm gonna call myself 88 Keys. So Large Professor wasn't even aware that he was inspiring this dude to come up with this unique and dope name, and apparently he doesn't really play keys. It's the weirdest thing, it's the weirdest thing to say my name is 88 Keys, but like I don't really play the keys. But I think when you're like 16, 17, when you're a teenager, like when it sounds cool,
and it has stuck, so we love it. It's just gone 7 o'clock. We are halfway through the producer spotlight. We're going all the way until we hit 7:30, and we're going to officially open the second and final hour with 88 Keys. It's just gone 5 minutes after 7 o'clock. We're in the second and final hour of the show, and the second half of the producer spotlight with Mr. Instro. Tonight we're taking a look at 88 Keys, and he's got quite a lot to tell us. There's theories, there's experiences, there's people, there's pep talks, there's just a lot that he wants to tell us about. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, first and foremost, can I please give a very special shout out to Native Tongues? Okay,
yes,
you see that pause that happened earlier? Where my brain switched off. It was because I was looking for that group, for the name of the group. So it's Native Tongues. That's your Dillers.
Yes,
that's your Tribe Called Quest. That's your people that actually like did this whole movement about being conscious of who you are. They sort of elevated African eccentricity in the States, using hip-hop as a vehicle. So big shout out to Native Tongues. They are like life changers, right? So let's move. So 88 Keys, right? At some point in his life around 2010, he decided that he was not gonna shop around beats anymore.
Why? Because that sounds like it's like, yo, what do you mean?
Right. And what was actually even more perplexing about that was that that's like the beginning of the internet era, right? This is where like everybody is just working via the net, where we're actually networking, and how like it's just much easier to do that, right? And he decided he was not gonna do that anymore.
Okay.
And that was based on an experience that he had with Kid Cudi.
Ooh.
Okay. Shout out to Kid Cudi. I mean, he was just being him. Like, it's not. I wouldn't expect it to be a beef or anything like that, right? So. This one time Kid Cudi called 88 Keys and was like, yo man, can you send me some beats? Dope. Homie sent him about 30 beats, right? And some time went by and he was like, yo, can you send me others? Like I'm not really vibing with any of those. and he sent him another batch, and he never got a call back, right? Let me explain this, guys. We should never take these things personal. He even says it himself. You mustn't take it personal. If the work that you're working on doesn't fit, then it doesn't fit, bruh. You know what I mean? And it's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate that, you know, such a large amount of music, like, you couldn't find one, or
that's why
there's nothing you could work with. But the reason why it drove him to stop is the fact that he didn't want to consider himself a producer that couldn't fit a certain album. Do you understand? It's either we're getting into the studio, like, he's never not that guy. That's actually what he said. He's never not that guy. His work, first and foremost, proves that he's never not that guy. He can make music. That's why I'm saying that he reminds me a lot of myself, because I knew that every time I would send people beats, I would never get a response back.
Right.
And that's because a lot of people wouldn't really connect on a beat level.
Okay.
That's why you get a Dr. Dre. That's why you get a Scott Storch. That's why you get a Timberland. But as soon as you switch to an 88 keys, as soon as you switch to a DJ High Tech, you have to have a connection with the producer. You have to have a connection with what the guy is making.
I feel you.
Before you can, you know, sort of connect with and make a song. So I really understand why his process is like that. Because sometimes, man, the best hits or the best popular songs I made were songs that we had either spoken about,
right,
or we had experienced. You know, we were hanging out and, yo, 2 cups Shakur. Now, yo, we've got this. You know what I mean? Now we've got this term that we're using. Now we're using, before when I used to drink alcohol, you know. I don't drink no more. But
disclaimer.
But yeah, and by the way, 88 Keys don't drink as well. So yeah,
I understand.
Do what you will with that information.
Spirit animal.
Right. So yeah, we had these two cups.
Double cups.
Yeah, double cups. When you pour, you know, you call yourself 2 cups, you know, you 1 shot, 5 shots, whatever the chorus says, because we experienced it. You know, it was something that was documented in the music. So every time we hear it, it's something that's relatable.
100%.
And that's why you can listen to it today and still vibe to it.
That's true.
You understand? So with 88 Keys, it's the same thing. He decided, he was like, yo, maybe I'm not the send me your beats kind of guy.
And when you explain it like that, I'm like, okay, it doesn't quite sound as like, yo, what are you doing? You
can't force an artist to now mess with you just because you're a big name. And that's the biggest mistake that a lot of artists do. They will force themselves to make certain kind of music just because it's a big name producer on the beat. And sometimes the truth is, as a creative, you don't always hit the mark. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Not every beat is a banger.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And I imagine that, like, as much as he sent 30 plus beats, maybe Kid Cudi was, we know Cudi's sound, and maybe he was just sending beats that were meant for Mos Def. You understand? You can't send beats that were meant for Mos Def to Kid Cudi.
Right.
You understand? You need to be in a studio with him. You need to discuss where you're going with the album, what kind of feel that you're trying to do. And then the guy will actually make something that actually suits your sound. Don't ever make the mistake of thinking that he cannot or he doesn't deserve to be on a Kid Cudi album. He does. He has the knowledge. He has the experience. But he just needs the connection.
I like that. He just needs the connection.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna take a money break. Wow, I like money breaks. We're gonna take a music break just now, but not before Mr. Instro tells me a story. There's a Donda Kanye story that you need.
Yes. Oh, thank you for reminding me. I need to tell you guys how 88 Keys. So 88 Keys is very close friends with Kanye West,
right?
And like on some like best friends. If they were like those kind of people, they would call themselves besties, okay? Which is why you will still see 88 Keys on these credits, because they hang out so much, right? So how they met is 88 Keys was working on an album. Guys, please do yourself a favor and look up a lyricist, right, by the name of Jane Doe.
Yes.
Okay. Jane Doe makes a guest appearance on the Black Star album as I think the song is called Twice in a Lifetime. When you listen to that lady, she actually I didn't want to mention that she's a lady, but you know, I guess Jane Doe kind of gives it away. Jane Doe, right?
Yo.
Yeah, it kind of gives it away, I guess.
Yeah.
So she gets on Twice in a Lifetime and she obliterates that beat, okay?
Right.
She actually just stands out. Like it's a posse track. I wish I could play it, but that was produced by DJ High Tech. You know, so yeah, like Twice in a Life. Please look up any work you can find from Jane Doe. So 88 Keys was producing an album for Jane Doe which never got released.
Okay.
But there is some content on Jane Doe. So if you're really trying to hear, you know, how ladies can spit, she's definitely a good reference.
Right.
Okay. And so Just Blaze had heard of Jane Doe and was like, yo, 88 Keys, I know you was working on this lady's album.
Yes.
Yeah, so can I please like just come through, see what I can contribute? Hey, homie, cool. Come to the Baseline Studios. 88 Keys goes to the Baseline Studios, where he actually gets to meet a lot more people.
Right.
Met Young Guru and subsequently produced a song for Beanie Siegel, right? And like it's all nice and gravy, and in comes Kanye West. So they meet up and they take a walk, having proper introduction, whatever, and they eventually go to 88 Keys' house, and he's like, yo, we're gonna do the whole, we're both producer thing, we both kind of rap, so I'm just gonna show you my setup and maybe play you some beats, and then we're gonna start freestyling, like, you know, like that's people do it, like they normally do. And he says that Kanye came around 1 in the afternoon and left around 2 in the morning the same day, cause like they just had so much in common, right? They were just clicking, and you know, they were playing PlayStation, you know. Dope. And then the very next day it was the same thing. Like he went to Kanye's spot, which wasn't too far from where he was staying.
Oh, nice.
And they did the exact same thing. And he said for a period of 4 years, okay, that's what they did. Outside of like just, you know, having to do the work, producing albums and whatever, they would just hang out all the time. Right. And the one day Kanye's mom came through visiting Kanye from Chicago, and Kanye was like, yo, you gotta meet my moms. Right. And when Kanye stepped out the room, Miss Donda was like, yo, man, I speak to Kanye West every day, okay, on the phone, and you're the one person that he mentions the most often. So like, I appreciate your presence in his life, and from today on, I consider you family.
Aww.
Right?
That's amazing. So
that's incredible. These guys have like an incredible synergy. But then when you listen to 88 Keys talk, and even like his own demeanor, like you can tell that like he's just a really eclectic guy, and he knows who he is, and he has fun with it, you know. And I would imagine Kanye West to being the same, you know, maybe more erratic than 88
a little
Keys.
less laid back.
Yeah, a little less laid back, but in terms of the personalities, I would see why they would fit. They're both into clothes. 88 Keys has got this crazy obsession with polo, so this guy like only wears polo. Okay, like that's how crazy his obsession is. Like he actually shops for it. He says that he wants to look like the mannequin at the polo store.
Yo, I think it's a perfect time for us to take that music break.
Right.
Kanye West, the joint is called Remote Control. Then we're going to take a money break, and then we're going to come back with what's left of the Producer Spotlight. And we're back again, 22 minutes after 7 o'clock. It is still the Producer Spotlight with myself and Mr. Instro. We're taking a look at 88 Keys, and just before we took that music break where we played Kanye West Remote Control, you're talking about Polo and how he wants to look like the Polo mannequin.
Yeah, so basically he had a very big interest. I mean, there was this culture, okay? They call themselves low heads, okay, where, you know, they collect different kinds of labels, and he was very interested in clothes, in the culture of clothes, how certain textures felt.
Yes.
And I guess he sort of like got to Polo and was like, this is it. this is where I'm staying, you know, this is where I'm staying. And I get it to some degree, because even with me, when it comes to clothing, man, like I feel like it's an extension of you expressing yourself, right?
100%.
But at the same time, I think we need to not be too everywhere, you know. Be a pantsula, you know, and show us how you can be the best pantsula in the world. You know what I mean? Like I feel like a lot of us try to go with whatever is hot too much.
Okay.
When we don't really explore what the culture that you're into actually does.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And it all comes from the nature of being a historian, you know, just knowing where certain things come from and how they got to be how they are, you know, and not just jumping on labels just because somebody else is wearing them.
I feel you. It's like understanding why Adidas is important to the hip hop culture.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Like it's one of those things that really make you a solid member of the certain culture, whatever
that
the culture
you're a part
is.
of, yeah.
Exactly. So I admire 88 Keys for having that kind of love. I mean, he would actually get to a point where he was telling the sales rep more about Polo than the person who's actually selling it.
So do you think he's the one who influenced Kanye?
I would say he plays a very big role, you know, in how to look at clothes. And I think Kanye has always loved clothes.
Yeah.
You know, but obviously when you're around people that share the same passions with you, then it only propels you to become a Louis Vuitton Don.
Yes.
You know, it propels you to want to make your own clothing and just do things that like no other person is doing, you know, when it comes to clothes. So I definitely think there is an influence, because when you hear him talk about it, you can tell that like he sounds like a scientist.
Yeah.
You know, he knows what he's talking about when he tells you about the different
thread counts.
Exactly. And the season collections
and the emblem.
Exactly.
All
So
these things.
So, and also, man, like, yo, like, I love the fact that clothes sometimes can, you know, they can help you sort of like become even more expressive as an artist.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's sometimes people don't just, like Pharrell, for instance, right? Pharrell is, it's hard to separate his music and his dress sense. You know, you always want, like, it's an extension of his artistry. And I love the fact that there is a producer out there who has, like, who isn't as popular as Pharrell,
right?
Who isn't but who is still entrenched and who is invested in that culture.
I love that. So we've got 4 minutes to go before we wrap up the producer spotlight. What are your takeaways from 88 Keys before we close it off?
Okay. Let's see. I'll mention 3. Okay. The first one is you don't have to have hits to become the best producer. Okay. It's very controversial, but it's true. If you're dope, then you're dope. Okay, and there are artists that will mess with you. He's like the perfect example. You don't if you're a producer and you're trying to get out there, it's not necessary to be the hit maker,
right?
You know, especially if you're in it to express yourself as an artist. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is be proud of where you come from. You know, your roots are important, you know, in defining who you are as an individual. You know, like they say, if you don't know where you come from, you won't know where you're going. So it's imperative to get to know yourself and to get to know what your background is, right? And it'll also help you as an artist, as someone who creates. Okay, you find yourself being able to tap in and to create much better. Okay, cool. Then the last thing, 88 Keys, have fun. You know, like don't think too much about this thing. Sometimes there is no method to making it. Sometimes it's just a person being themselves.
True.
You know, I know with him, when you listen to 88 Keys speak, every second line is a joke. Right. You know, and you can tell that he enjoys his life. And I think there's a lot of things that scare us as artists that block us from wanting to have fun and wanting us to enjoy our artistry. So yeah, have fun with it, man, and know where you come from. And what was the third one?
You don't have to be a hit maker to be the best.
You don't just have fun with it, okay?
All right, that is how Mr. Instro closes it off for this evening. And the joint we're going to close off with is Most Def with Speed Law.
Yeah.
And then we get into a curation of sorts until we hit 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, we make way for Hip Hop on the Grind with Override, the man who controls the hype so much so that I'm a guest I figure an hour ago. So do make sure that even though we are leaving at 8 o'clock, he is still going to be here holding it down for us as hip hop.
The Producer Spotlight with Mr. Instro.
You can be a beat maker and not be a music producer. But when you're a music producer, you don't have to be a beat maker.
Only on the